The Call of Duty Zombies community always has a bit of drama inside of it in some way, shape, or form. It's always the classic community versus the new modern zombies community, and there always seem to be butting heads. And now, Tim Hansen, one of the biggest content creators inside of the zombies community, has made a video discussing why modern zombies sucks and why he thinks that is. So without further ado, let's dive into the video.
I think Call of Duty is officially, actually, legitimately dead to me now.
Okay, so that's a pretty bold statement, and I promise I won't pause here overly because I know that's really annoying. But when I first heard this, I was like, yes, you're right. You are right. Call of Duty Zombies, quote unquote, as it were, is dead. The old Call of Duty Zombies is dead. But that's okay, right? So the way I try to look at this is we're in the new era of zombies, and that's fine. Is it my favorite era? No. Do I like it a lot? Yeah, I think Black Ops 6 is pretty solid. I think it's a pretty great game. It's not my favorite, but I do think it's really solid. And when I look at kind of the time capsule that was, in my opinion, the peak era of kind of BO3, maybe the end of BO2, up through the end of BO4, like that was just a really special era. And I know the come up from World at War to BO1, that was also special, but it was really kind of found its stride from ending of BO2 to the end of BO4. And even Infinite Warfare, World War II, Advanced Warfare, you could even maybe say if you want to. But my point is, like, there was a really big hot streak of zombies content during that time period when it came to story, to difficulty, to boss fights, to art direction. And that is quote unquote dead. Like, that era is sealed off. And I love that it is, because every time I go back to it, I'm like, man, this was so special. This was so damn special. I love it so much. And so I get what he's saying. He's not wrong. But to say that the entire franchise is dead, well, that's not true, right? That is not true. There is a new era that it's coming up. It's being developed. It's kind of almost growing grassroots in its own way. But the reason it feels dead, or it feels like it doesn't have a true identity, is simply because it is built upon it's built upon the foundation that was the old style of zombies. And I personally just don't think this new era of modern zombies has fully found its identity yet. And I was hoping that Black Ops 6 would solidify that, but I don't know if it has. And we'll talk about that, more and more throughout, hopefully, this video, but through other videos that I'm going to make on the other channels. But all I'm trying to say is that this era is still kind of being defined. Like, Cold War was a really big, interesting way to get the Call of Duty franchise set up, and Vanguard and MWZ are kind of their own offshoots. But Black Ops 6 is really the second true iteration of modern zombies. Like, you can't sit here and say that something that's still kind of getting going when it took, what, a decade? It took a decade from World at War to BO4, and then we're just all of a sudden supposed to be like, well, this new era of zombies is just dead. It's like, well, just give it some time. And I know it's not going to be the same as a brand new thing that was exciting and we didn't know which way it was going to go, to where we kind of have these predictive markers with BO6. And this is where Treyarch really does need to step up and innovate in new ways. They've innovated a lot on the gameplay, but the gameplay can be very monotonous because it's the same on every map, which we're going to touch on that in a little bit. So I just wanted to clear that first point up. Let's listen to him a little bit, and then I'll pause again.
Call of Duty as a whole, I am a zombies channel, so I'm talking specifically about zombies, but I'm sure that what I'm saying about zombies is directly applicable to whatever other mode. And of course, DLC to The Tomb, I think it's called, was revealed and is going to be coming out pretty soon. And I am dead inside. I just have no excitement for this. And honestly, this isn't even just a Black Ops 6 thing. This has been for the past half decade, spanning all the way back to Cold War. Let's be honest. Black Ops 6 Zombies is not bad. Let me repeat that. It is not bad. And
yeah, I mean, in terms of feeling that lack of excitement, I'm a little bit 50-50 on it. When I'm watching the trailers, I'm like, dang, that looks like a sick trailer. But then I remember some things regarding the gameplay that concern me. They really do. And so I'm excited to get into the map and to play it a few times and to beat the boss and to do the Easter egg. But then it stops there, and it's like, okay, well then there's camo grinding, and then there's what else? Camo grinding, leveling up, prestiging. Okay, that's cool, but like I really love being immersed in these worlds, and that immersion is like if you watch my Citadel Day More video, the review I just did, the depth of these maps is it's pretty shallow, and that's not it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just that's just how these maps are, and that's okay. Which if they can keep out this breadth of this level of content with a new map like every month and a half, well then heck, I think we're going to be fine. But I just don't see that there's going to be 10 maps, this year. I just don't think that's going to be possible.
Strangest part is there isn't a particular tangible thing I can point to and just be like, hey, this is the reason why this game sucks. It's not a map.
I was actually saying this to a friend the other day.
That's game breaking. It's not any one thing, it's this thing that I just can't quite put my little finger on.
I was actually saying this to a friend the other day, but I do think I actually figured out what it is that I'm concerned with. So we'll touch on that in a bit, but I was saying this to a friend the other day. I was like, it's hard to put a finger on it because it's like the game is good, but I don't feel that like strong urge to come back. So that's why whenever I feel that like annoyance towards zombies in my heart or whatever you want to say, I just take a step back. I'm like, I'll come back when I'm in the mood.
Zombies is just not hitting the same. And that's not even because it's bad. But we're going to get to the bottom of this. So what I have for you right now is the good old whiteboard. Because as we know, using one of these makes you smarter and automatically more qualified. So COD Zombies now feels a lot more like a science. A science. When it used to feel a lot more like an art form. It's not quite center, but COD Zombies over the years went from what I believed to be an art form with imperfections to this very formulaic, scientific refinement. Everything has been refined to its absolute ultimate result. I don't want to say perfection because it's not perfect. This is kind of like a broader conversation when it comes to everything, movies, TV shows. Everything is going to be refined to whatever works best. Would we rather go out on a limb and take a risk and create a brand new show that may or may not land with that, or just remake something that was already successful and cash out? Modern Zombies is like McDonald's. You just hop in the drive-thru, you order what you want. It's very efficient. It works. It's, exactly what you're gonna get, and then you kind of just go on about your day. And it was solid. It was good. But classic Zombies, throwback Zombies is sort of like a sit-down restaurant, like a fine wine and dine restaurant. Sure, it takes longer to make, but tastes better, and it's just, it's made with love. It's made with care. And even if there is an imperfection, it's just better. Because I refuse to believe that, even though it's definitely part of the equation that I'm getting older and I have nostalgia for older games and blah, 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 blah. I get it. That's certainly a component of this. But I just refuse to believe that that is the only sole reason for this. And because I'm not alone. In fact, hang on. Where are we at with BO6 at this point?
Well, I don't trust this poll because this poll is going to be skewed to his audience. But anyway, the point is, I actually don't disagree with this take here. It's hard to put your finger on why exactly this isn't hitting. Like I said, I do think I have figured it out a little bit. But it also, we have to remember, the developers are creating a very large game. So let's kind of talk about that first. I think one of the core issues is Call of Duty is massive. Not just the game itself, but the studios and the people that are working on it. So, for example, it's not just going to be Treyarch. It's Treyarch, Raven, Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, and Activision Shanghai, and I don't know if Toys for Bob is on the team anymore, but like they spread this stuff out everywhere, and I don't know exactly how their systems work, but perhaps I'm just throwing this out there. Perhaps like Kevin Drew and his Zombies team are like focusing on the core story and the core principles of the game. Like they're like, okay, we want 4 swords, we want the Doppelgast, we want this storyline, we're gonna have this cutscene. But then they send the cutscene off to like I don't know, Activision Shanghai, and then they send the sword development to Raven. I don't know exactly how it works. I'm just saying that I know that they're very spread thin, whereas up through, I know studios always helped for sure. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's always been a thing. But it seems like it's much more spread out than it ever was before, rather than having a little bit more of an intimate setting. And I don't have any like foolproof evidence for this. It's just, we know that every studio is working on Call of Duty at this point because it's so massive with like kind of one team leading. And that was the case before, but I don't think the disparity was quite as vast. So I think when you remove that level of intimacy, like, why would a guy in Activision Shanghai care about, like, let's just hypothetically say they are creating the sword from Citadel. Why would they care about what the electric sword does? Like, they don't. They just build it and then they just send the assets to Treyarch, and then Treyarch like fine tunes it. Like, so it's kind of missing that love and that passion. It's like it's getting fractured. And I do think that is a bit of a component. The other thing is, when Tim is talking about COD Zombies being an art, this is something I alluded to in my Citadel Day More review, where when you upgrade the swords inside of Citadel, it's just, okay, collect 3 things, throw them in a, like, we'll use the lightning sword as an example. Collect 3 lightning, whatever they're called. The lightning strike, what are they called? What is it called? Lightning rod. Gosh, so stupid. Okay, so let's go back to Citadel for a second. In Citadel Day More, when you're building the lightning sword, or whatever you want to call it, you collect the 3 lightning rods, put them in a pot thing that spins around, and then kill a couple zombies, put the lightning in there, and then you're done. Whereas in Horizon Drac, when you're building the wolf bow, you have to find a wolf head, place it in a specific area to activate the spirit of the wolf. The wolf takes you around the map to find the bones and the burial spots of his ancestor, or of his master, and then you collect all of his bones, and then the wolf is pointing you to his tomb, and then you put the bones in there. Like, that is so sick. That is a mini subplot in the map on its own. Whereas these swords are just like, oh, this bastard sword, really, he had a tough relationship with his dad. He has daddy issues. Just collect some crap, throw it together. Now you have the power. But, like, what was his issue with the owl? What was his issue with his father? Why did he have this ability? You know? So that level of depth inside of that story to tell you why this sword is the way it is, that's missing. And then it's missing with the fire sword. It's missing with the light sword. It's missing with the dark sword. And then you have the component of gameplay being spread across the entire game. All the gameplay mechanics. So like the Casimirs or the mutant injectors. Like, I thought the mutant injections were going to only be on Terminus. And we would have, or maybe Liberty Falls. But then we would have, and I was disappointed when I saw that they were on Liberty Falls, because that's when I realized it was a salvage thing, which is annoying to me. But why not have other mechanics in the map that make it special, that make it unique for that particular experience? So maybe there's multiple mutant injections that are on Liberty Falls, Citadel Day More, that turn you into a Doppelgast, or that turn you into a Mega Abomination, or that turn you into an Amalgam, right? Rather than just having it be like this weird score streak that's unified on every single map. I understand that would be hard to do, but it could show, like, well, maybe Peck is a mad scientist, so he has extrapolated the DNA from these things, allowing us to temporarily, like, become him. That would be sick. Like, utilize the skills that these characters have to make the story a little bit more deep. He's a mad scientist, so he makes you a mad experiment, right? Same with like I said, the swords. So why is there not a little bit more depth? Again, if we use the Casimir example I just talked about, it's like, with the Gersh devices back in the day, it's like there was a little bit of a story with Gersh, and then we like interact with his spirit later in Garad Krovi. But the Casimir's like, what the hell? Like, who made them? What are they for? Maybe there's some lore behind them and that I missed inside of Cold War. Please feel free to correct me in the comments. But having those unique mechanics in each map, Gersh devices, QEDs, and then having a little bit of an explanation as to why they were there, is exciting. And even if there's not an explanation, like I don't know if on Moon there's like a radio that's like, these are the QEDs and here's why they're there. I don't know if they necessarily do that, but at least it's a unique gameplay mechanic so that you come back to Moon to experience the QEDs. And another thing that's important to note is that these components, how do I want to say this? These components, when they're unique, they play to the core strengths of the map. So Brutus inside of Mob of the Dead, when he's barreling down a tight corridor, one of the tight prison corridors, you're scared shitless because you're like, this brutal prison guard is coming after me. Or with the Panzer, and you get stuck in the mud, and he's like, he grabs you at the last second on Origins. Those boss enemies are designed in tandem with the map so that he can overpower you, and then you have to figure out how to like navigate that. That's like why it was tense. But nowadays, it's just, let's put all the boss zombies everywhere. Let's put all the gameplay mechanics everywhere. And then that literally ruins the experience of ruins is a strong word, but it inhibits a little bit of that unique element on the map itself, because the enemies and the maps should be designed together. The gameplay mechanics should be designed together so that the way that the map is laid out, the areas of cover, the way that the hallways are designed, or the way that the pathing works in the map, it corresponds and works. It synergizes with the mechanics and the bosses and stuff like that.
16% of people are still playing it a lot. 16%. Then you have the vast majority of people, 1 out of 2 people, are saying, here and there. So, that, I don't know. Interpret that how you will. But almost 35% of people are over it. They're just like, I'm done. So in this column here,
I just don't buy that data. His audience is obviously going to be skewed. And I bet you it's less than that, because, like, for example, I like the game, but I don't play it every day, because if I do, I'm going to get sick of it. So I'll take breaks, and if I feel sick of it, I just pause and I come back later when I want to. That's the healthiest relationship you can have. And as soon as you kind of accept that the past zombies, I'm not saying you have to do this, by the way, but as soon as you accept like the old days of zombies are done and over with, I feel like I'm really in the middle here. Like, I feel like I piss off modern zombies fans when I critique modern zombies, but then I feel like I piss off classic fans when I say, like, just accept that it's dead. You don't have to accept anything you don't want to. But what I'm trying to say is, like, if you just appreciate what those golden years were from World at War to BO4, that's okay. And it's okay to go back. Like, the devs aren't there anymore. Those same devs are not there. There's a couple, Kevin Drew, that other guy, I can't remember his name, from the Citadel de Mor Intel drop. But most of those devs are not there. They went to Deviation Games, which was probably not a smart move, but they left, and we have a new era of developers. So to expect that it's going to even be as close to the same is problematic. And in a way, if we really want the mode to be good, I think we got to kind of let them do whatever the heck they want to figure that out, so that their true artistry can shine through, rather than having them copy Blundell and copy the olden days. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Sorry for pausing. I know I said I wouldn't. My bad.
We're going to have to determine what really made classic zombies an art form. Of course, let's be fair, part of what made classic zombies an art form is the novelty. I don't give a shit what my handwriting looks like, by the way. Novelty, nostalgia, being sort of the first of its kind, not being done over and over and over and
That's
over
true,
again.
but that's the same for anything.
A lot of what creates said novelty is innovation, not some throwaway thing like, you remember Tombstone? Here you go. Or, do you remember this gun? Here you go. This is new, right? No. I'm talking about real innovation, like game-shifting, positive game-shifting features and innovations. World of War lays down the foundation, then of course Black Ops comes in every single map, having awesome new wonder weapons, perks, characters, everything. Black Ops 2, it's complicated. There was just so much new, and it opened up so many different ways to play the game. So much versatility. And then of course Black Ops 3 with its map design, gobblegum, weapons kits. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And you know what? It's actually probably a good idea real quick to differentiate which is classic and modern. Black Ops 4 is kind of the weird middle child, so I would consider modern zombies to be everything BO4 through BO6, and classic to be World of War through BO4.
What's the difference between classic and modern zombies, really?
Well, it's interesting you ask. I actually made a video specifically talking.
All right, so I actually do agree BO4 is the middle child, which is probably why I kind of piss off both groups of people, is because BO4 is my favorite game. But when he was talking about innovation, there's a point in this video. Let me see if he says it. Hold on.
About that and comparing and contrasting and deciding which was ultimately better. I'm gonna link that for you real quick. They actually monetized it because my fucking went there. Good store.
All right, so at one point in this video, he's talking about innovation, and he says something about I'll just kind of cut to the chase. He talks about how there's only so many good ideas you can come up with, and I don't believe that for a second. How can we know all the good ideas have been come up with if we don't know what we haven't come up with? You know what I mean? It's not like there's a list of 100 ideas and these are all good and we've done them all. Treyarch could innovate in a lot of ways by implementing more RPG systems into the game itself. I think they would have to do that through side quests, which is something I'm going to talk about in a future video. But just like imagine with me for a second if they had side Easter eggs that you could upgrade like one part of your kit, of your player like offensive kit. So maybe there's like an Easter egg that gives you 25% more damage on a particular assault rifle, or 25% more damage with the napalm burst, this particular side quest, and it kind of let you boost it for that game. Or maybe there's permanent passive upgrades that you do the Easter egg once and it unlocks it for your character. Or maybe inside of the tomb we complete a certain side Easter egg and it gives us the ability to have two major augments at the same time, or two minor augments at the same time for certain perks. Like, that stuff would be sick. So instead of putting the skill tree in the menu, you put the skill tree in the side Easter eggs, and then there can be certain ones that are permanent upgrades, or certain ones that are just in-game upgrades. Like, that would make Easter eggs replayable. Because like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, getting a chess piece to like help me out and slam zombies around, I don't care. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that's a good side Easter egg. It's better than no side Easter eggs. But I just don't think the side Easter egg rewards have been super great. It's just getting perks most of the time. Inside of inside of Terminus and Liberty Falls, there was a couple really good side Easter eggs, like the stuffed animal one I think was pretty good. The boats one is just fun. The double points Easter egg on Terminus, the Etherella side Easter egg. There's some good stuff there. So having the ability to do something really fun or buff your player, either temporarily or permanent, there's lots of great ways they can innovate. But I don't know why they're not. It is concerning to me.
Actually giving a shit about and being invested in the characters and the plot and everything going on that's not directly just the shooting part. This next one is so important, arguably the most important. Wow, this is really hard to write sideways like this. Immersion. Now, what exactly is immersion? To me, it's a bit of an intangible tone, atmosphere, vibes that do stem from very tangible features within the game, such as color palette, lighting, music, etc. This is a big one, folks. Freedom. The freedom in-game to not only make mistakes, but to bounce back from them and change your mind and attack the game in so many different ways. So many different ways to play the game. Whereas in modern zombies, it's a lot of just spawning in with a gun and triple papping it, and that's kind of it. And this is going to sound very counterintuitive, and I can already hear people pounding their keyboards and screaming imperfections. So of course, you don't want to actively place imperfections in a game. Duh. You don't want to purposefully make a design flaw. But let me just give you an example. There's no better example than Transit, the infamous Black Ops 2 launch map. It was so poorly designed and it was so bad that, it's just inarguably one of the worst maps of all time. But people love it. It's one of the fan favorites. Why is that? A lot of it stems from them actually trying. They were aspirational. Sure, they bit off more than they could chew. They did way too much, way too early. It was ahead of its time, and I think that's why people have a deep appreciation for it, even if it's subconscious. It's so chaotic, it's so fucked up that you and a couple of buddies can hop on and have a genuinely fun time. Don't believe me? Let's compare it to a map that has an objectively better design, but is far more forgettable and a lot less played. Firebase Z, Cold War Zombies DLC 1. Not a bad map by any means. In fact, definitely objectively better design than Transit, but you forgot it existed, or at the very least, you haven't played it in a while. It's forgettable. Why is that? It's because there were no outstanding features in any positive or even negative way. Now, of course, there are some maps that have negative qualities that are just outright bad maps, Alpha Omega. But the point remains, oftentimes, interesting but flawed trumps boring and forgettable. Unsurprisingly, a lot.
So this is why I kind of like disagree with his stance here, is calling Alpha Omega a bad map just doesn't make any sense. Alpha Omega is a really good map. But I'm not going to get into that, but it's almost like missing the forest through the trees. I think there's a lot of people that like Firebase Z. It's actually grown out of all the Cold War maps. It's actually the one that's grown on me the most, surprisingly. But I think a better way to talk about the imperfection thing that he's discussing is, how about this one? Popping all 3 fire sales to make them 90 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds. That is an imperfection. I don't know if Treyarch did that intentionally, but that's an imperfection, right? And in Black Ops 6, they actually stop you from being able to do that. So if you grab a fire sale that an amalgam drops and then you pop your personal fire sale, immolation liquidation, you actually don't get 60 seconds. You only get 30. So that type of stuff are imperfections that are good for the player. Or doing the camo grind on directed mode, that was an unintentional thing from Treyarch, and then they patched it. Or the shock charge thing in Terminus. Those things are imperfections that players use to have fun, and that's the stuff that I think needs to be left in the game. Now, you could say, okay, Transit bit off more than it can chew and whatnot, but the thing is Town is one of the most played maps, I think. I don't think people necessarily hated Transit. I think they hated like the fog, and I think they hated like the bus and the jet gun, but I don't know. I don't think Transit is like this. I still don't think Transit is, I don't think it's a bad map, but like Firebase Z is, well, I don't know. I haven't played a ton of Transit, so I can't sit here and say this, but I would say that if I wanted to have like a better COD Zombies experience of just going through an Easter egg and getting to high rounds and stuff, I think I would probably rather play Firebase Z than Transit. Like Transit, the jet gun breaks apart, so it's like the fog sucks, the denizens suck. There are a couple of good spots that I like to go to in town and farm and whatnot, but for the most part, I would rather play Firebase Z, I think. The gameplay feels a little bit better to me. I like the Wonder Weapon on Firebase Z. I don't like the Ordas, but the point is, like, just because something has imperfections, that still doesn't make it more fun to play. I think the imperfections come inside of the gameplay. Like I said, with immolation, liquidation, and stuff like that. And there was a couple other things on this board that he wrote down. Immersion and good story. So immersion kind of talks, and the good story talks about with what I was talking about. Wow, I don't know what I just said there. The immersion kind of touches on that whole, why isn't there a little bit more depth in the story here? Why isn't there a little bit more of a unique aspect to upgrading the swords or to getting the beam smasher? I think the beam smasher is a little bit better of an example because you're dealing with that scientist and whatnot. But outside of that, I don't really think there's much more depth to any of the other wonder weapons in the game. So that's the kind of stuff that I really think makes COD Zombies pop, is that extra layer of why this was so special and powerful, and the portrayal of that. Like, when the owl in the boss fight, when the owl is talking to us in Citadel, that is so cool. Why wasn't that in throughout the Easter egg? Like, stuff like that I just don't understand. Like, why is Kraft talking to us but not the owl? You know, it's those decisions that I think are huge missed opportunities from Treyarch.
Forgettable. Unsurprisingly, a lot of what lands in this section directly opposes what lands here. Novelty, what's the opposite of that? Same. You know what? Let me make it an acronym form so that I don't get demonetized. Same shit, different day. Here's an example. The Simpsons. Virtually every idea you could possibly inject into a TV show has been done by The Simpsons. So much so that they're kind of just out here predicting the future, because they're literally just throwing everything at the wall until everything sticks. So any other opposing show, even The Simpsons itself, that tries to come up with a new idea really struggles to do so, because everything has just been thought of at this point, which is honestly not even Modern Zombies' fault to some degree, because you only have so many options and so many things you can make new. So a lot of that is just natural, right? But what is genuinely unfortunate is...
I just disagree with that. Like, you can't know what you don't know. So they could pull in ideas from other video games, like other genres. That's what made Zombies so special. It's an FPS, it's a tower defense, it's a... there's a main quest inside of it. There's a narrative. There's side content. It's a camo grinder. It has RPG elements. Like, that's why it's so special, because it's pulling everything in from so many different genres. I just don't agree with that. That's why we need great developers to keep working on the game, so that they can continue to innovate. That's what needs to happen. Straight up.
Is boring story. Let me ask you a genuine question. I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm so serious right now. Do you actually give a shit about the Black Ops 6 zombie story?
No, I don't.
Or Cold War?
I don't.
Or anything?
It's not good.
Do you actually feel emotionally attached or invested in what this plot and characters are? Like, genuinely ask yourself that. And if the answer is, oh, well, Richtofen's back and none of that. And this last one's really unfortunate.
That's what I was going to say, is like, so far with how they've told the story, I am not interested in it, because the way that it was sold at launch was Richtofen's trapped in the Dark Ether, Samantha's trapped in the Dark Ether, what's going on with them, and they're in this prison and they're going after Richtofen. But so far, we had a cutscene with Pericles Panos getting trapped in the Dark Ether with operators, and then in Citadel de Mor, Kraft dies, and we haven't learned anything more about Richtofen at all. So it's like, I just don't understand why we're not getting to the point. It seems like we're taking a long way around to get to some actual interesting stuff. And to be quite frank, like Weaver, Peck, and kind of Maya are like the only ones that are interesting. Also the old dude, I forget his name, Strauss, is okay. But like, I don't find Gray that interesting. I don't find Carver interesting at all. Like the characters they're more memorable than anything like Infinity Ward puts together, but there's not a lot of depth to them. And I think it's going to take time. So like, I want to be wrong. I want the story to be good.
The focus on micro transactions. Tim, some of the older games had microtransactions. Yes, that is the case. But A, they were tied in with the actual gameplay in a lot more meaningful way. And B, they weren't the absolute focus. It feels like Black Ops 6 Zombies is a vessel to peddle microtransactions more so than it is an actual game, with microtransactions being an extra. I mean, microtransactions in modern COD are being shoved down the consumer's throat far more than they ever have. It's not even close. They are the primary focus now, and it feels like the game itself is just a means to get you to spend extra money at this point. I'm sure I could extend this even more, but I think you guys get the point. Modern Zombies has boiled this mode down to a science. A formulaic, predictable, not necessarily bad, not objectively poorly designed, just uninspired, frankly forgettable experience. And while yes, classic Zombies undoubtedly has flaws, a lot of that is just what makes those games special. And again, you don't strive to have flaws, but it gives you more of a reason to go back and have a fun time. It makes it more of an outstanding, memorable experience. And I think what I've realized over time as I age, and my brain continues to develop, is that what sets apart a game is its playability. Duh. I mean, you play video games to have fun. And the only way you're having fun in a game is if it offers you some sort of incentive, some sort of reason to come back, something to remember and really, savor. And Modern Zombies just doesn't have it, man. It just doesn't. There was a honeymoon phase with Black Ops 6, like there is with every game that will ever come out. There's a couple of weeks that people are grinding, but what then? Once you're over the grinds, once you're over that honeymoon phase, what's really left? I mean, Terminus, Liberty Falls, especially Citadel, objectively good maps. I like them all. They are not bad. I would even argue that I'm higher on those maps than a lot of the people I talk to. But what I certainly agree with is that I don't find myself wanting to keep playing. There's nothing special enough for me to want to boot up the game.
I half disagree with this and I half don't. So part of the reason is when there's a new game and it's exciting, for sure. That's always going to be compelling to bring you back. But when I go back to an older game, when I go back to BO2, 3, 4, Cold War, etc., I have the whole roster of content that I can just kind of dive into and get, dip my toe in that ecosystem and have a unique experience. And I have the whole breadth of content at my disposal. But when a game is in a live service, like, it gets really annoying to go back to Terminus over and over and over and over and over again. And then not Liberty Falls, but then Citadel will come out and then you're like, I'm kind of sick of BO6 already. I've just been playing it constantly for 2 weeks on one map. It's like, well, yeah, no duh, you're going to be sick of it. You've been playing the game constantly. So I think when people, and try this out, like, take a break and then go back to the game when there's a lot of content, about to be 4 maps, maybe even take a little bit longer break if you're sick of it, and then wait till there's like 5 maps, and then just kind of play it all, and you'll find yourself appreciating it a lot more. And so I get what he's saying. Like, once the grind's over, once the Easter egg's over, it's like, well, what then? Well, I could say the same thing about Blood of the Dead. Like, I love Blood of the Dead. I love BO4 so much. But once I do the Blood of the Dead Easter egg, I'm like satisfied for a while. Same with Origins. Every now and then I get a huge craving to just do the Origins Easter egg, and then I won't touch it for months. So inherently, what's the difference here? What's the difference between me playing Terminus for a couple weeks and then not touching it for a while versus me doing that with Blood of the Dead or Origins? I get that there's a lack of depth in these maps. I get that. I get there's a lack of replayability in these maps, for sure. And that's because the presentation of information, the side quests, the upgrade trees, like double upgrading the swords or a secret upgrade for the beam smasher, like none of that stuff's there. It's just like weird side Easter eggs, like shoot a basketball in a hoop and get a bunch of points, or do this and get salvage, or go to the bank in Liberty Falls or Etherella. It's like, that stuff's cool. Don't get me wrong. But why is there not a double upgrade quest for the Beam Smasher? Why is there not a double upgrade quest for all the swords? Why is there not a further upgrade quest for the incantations? Like, that kind of stuff, I'm like, why is that not there? And it hasn't been there on any of the maps so far. So I hope they do that with the Ice Staff at least, a double upgrade or a secret ability, or there's another wonder weapon in there. But yeah, I get what he's saying, but I think it's a bit of a misnomer because you have to think about other maps when you're making this comparison and how you behave towards them. And it's like, yeah, I do have a better appreciation for the classics content, but this era is still in development. And when I go back to Cold War now, I feel fondly about it because I'm like, oh, I have the whole picture. I have the whole picture now. It's hard to be appreciative of something when it's like the picture's being painted still, the painting's being worked on in real time.
I played Citadel for 2 weeks, did everything that the map offered, and now I'm kind of over it.
That's what you're supposed to do. I'm sorry, that's what you're supposed to do.
Citadel is way better than Transit, like we talked about. a million times better. Would I rather play Citadel or Transit? I'd rather play Transit.
Well, then the question is, when's the last time you've played Transit? Do you play it every day?
I'm just using that as an example. Art is imperfect. Artists are imperfect. There are flaws. But that's what makes them so special. That's what makes them so valuable. That's why sitting down at a restaurant and enjoying a home-cooked meal from a mom and pa shop is so much more enthralling than going through the McDonald's drive-thru. A McDonald's fast food corporation that scientifically, literally engineers their food to be addictively tasty. The devs used to pour so much of their heart and blood and sweat and tears and other bodily fluids into these games, and it just felt so much more special and so much more engaging. And it feels like, maybe not to their fault, I think we all know whose fault it really is, not the devs so much as it is the publishers. We've just lost that. We've just lost the plot at this point. I don't think Black Ops 6 Zombies is bad. I think it's uninteresting, and I don't find myself returning to it. And that goes for all of modern Zombies games, spanning back to about the BO4 Cold War time period. Because the game has been uninteresting, that extends into the content that people are making here on YouTube. And what I've noticed that works is tutorials. Whenever people need to figure something out, they'll go onto YouTube, look up a tutorial, and those are still working very much so to this day. Informational videos still work on YouTube for zombies. Unfortunately, there's not much to make entertaining. It's very, very challenging to make entertaining content with modern Zombies games at this point. And that's why, part of why I haven't been uploading a lot recently, among other things. Launch was really exciting. Citadel...
I mean, I just have to disagree. I mean, there's a variety of content you could make. And again, to go back to the core idea of innovation, which was a pillar of his argument before, it's like, that's up to you, man. You got to make your own content, right? It's like, you can make a review, you can make an impressions, you can make a guide, you can make an ultimate guide, you can make a boss fight ranking, you can talk about the storyline, you can talk about, like, there's lots of stuff you can talk about, but it's like, then why don't you try doing content on other games as well? Like, if you need to take a break from zombies, just step back, just give yourself some space. It's like, it's going to be there. Having a healthy relationship with the game allows you to come up with creative content. And if you're not feeling it, then it's all about taking a break. But I think that's enough from this video, because if I remember correctly, he just kind of talks about content, and since the game is boring, that leads to a lack of content, which I understand to a certain degree. But talk about news, Activision. There's a lot that you could talk about here. So yeah, I don't know. Overall, I understand what he's trying to say, and it's not. I don't fully disagree with a lot of his arguments, but you have to ask yourself the question. Are you playing Terminus, or excuse me, are you playing Transit every day? Are you playing Origins every day? Are you playing Blood of the Dead every day? Are you playing Horizon Drac every day? No, you're not. Nobody is, in fact. Well, maybe speedrunners, but nobody is playing these maps every day. It's not healthy to do that. Like, you get in, you experience the map, and then you put it down. And then you come back to it in a few months and you're like, damn, this actually was really great. And that's what I appreciate about BO6 is it's kind of like no BS. It gives you everything that you need, and then you're on to the next one. And I do appreciate that about the game, but I do think it lacks a little bit of depth in terms of the presentation of things inside of the mode.